Most people think they know DC, politics, monuments, power suits, right? But after 21 years here, I'm telling you, that version is outdated. This city's changed so much, and neighborhoods once avoided are now million-dollar zip codes. We're the fastest growing city in the country, and it shows. But here's the thing, DC isn't for everyone. This is my honest review of what it's really like to live here. Hey, I'm Ryan Butler, and I've called DC home for over 2 decades. I've seen it grow from a one-note political town into a dynamic, layered city with a ton going on. Whether you're thinking about moving here, curious how it's changed, or wondering if the high cost of living is actually worth it, I got you. This is everything you need to know from someone who's been living in the DC life every single day. Alright, let's start with population because it's a pretty big deal. When I first moved here in 2004, DC was still recovering from decades when people were leaving in droves. Honestly, the city felt a little empty back then. So many neighborhoods were struggling to keep businesses open, and community spaces, forget about it. Fast forward to today, and boom, we've hit 702,250 residents. First time we've crossed 700,000 since before the pandemic hit. And check this out, DC was the fastest growing state. Yeah, I know it's not technically a state, don't come for me in the comments, in 2024. We grew 2.2%. Doesn't sound like much, but compare that to other major cities still trying to get people back after everyone fled during COVID. Pretty impressive, right? But the neighborhoods, that's where you really see the story. Take Shaw. When I visited friends there back in 2006, it was just sad. Empty storefronts everywhere, like 2 restaurant options maybe. Most newcomers wouldn't even consider it. But today, total madness. It's packed with these super creative restaurants, cool little shops where the owners actually know you, and these amazing community spaces where something's always happening. Now, Navy Yard went through the same crazy transformation. I remember when it was basically just industrial buildings and boring parking lots near the baseball stadium. If you go now, you literally wouldn't recognize it. Waterfront parks, luxury apartments everywhere, weekend farmers markets with the best produce you'll ever taste. I mean, the speed of this development has been wild. But what makes these changes particularly interesting is the demographic diversity driving them. DC isn't just getting bigger, it's getting way more interesting. You've got international diplomats living next door to government workers, tech people moving in down the street from healthcare specialists and artists. It's created these neighborhoods with totally different vibes and influences. And this neighborhood diversity actually plays a huge role in the community and lifestyle benefits I'll show you later on. This diversity brings a richness to communities that goes way beyond what most people think about when they picture Washington. In my Columbia Heights neighborhood, I can walk seriously like 5 minutes walk and hit Salvadorian, Ethiopian, Vietnamese, and Georgian restaurants. The international vibe stretches way past those embassy parties you see on TV. But what's bringing all these people together here in the first place? Let's talk about jobs. The first question at any DC party isn't what's your name, it's what do you do? And trust me, the answer to that question has changed big time over the years. This intense focus on careers is actually one of the key personality traits that determines if you'll love it here or hate it here. When I landed here in 2004, it was government jobs everywhere. I mean, that's still the backbone of this place and it keeps it running, but the scene has expanded like crazy. Today, DC's average hourly wage is amongst the highest in the country, well above the national average of $32.66. That's not chump change. The median salary here is about $77,000. And if you're in the legal world, top attorneys can pull in $90 an hour or more. Now, these numbers tell you something important. We're way beyond just government work now. The tech growth has been insane. Companies like Optoro, Contactually, and Morning Consult have set up shop and they're thriving. And let's not forget Amazon HQ2 just across the river in Arlington. That's created this huge ripple effect through the whole region's tech scene. Healthcare is another massive growth area, with MedStar Washington Hospital Center, Children's National, and the NIH just in Bethesda. Medical folks have tons of opportunities here. COVID actually sped this whole thing up. Healthcare jobs have grown rapidly here since 2020. Wow, right? Education is super solid too. Between all these prestigious universities, public schools, and these cool educational tech companies popping up, there are thousands of new jobs every year. And when the economy tanked a couple times, these institutions stayed strong while other sectors were freaking out. Then there's consulting, probably DC's signature industry alongside government. You got the giants like Booz Allen, Deloitte, McKinsey, plus all these boutique firms that specialize in super specific policy areas. Consultants absolutely crush it in this ecosystem where who you know and what you know can be worth serious money. Speaking of connections, that's the hidden advantage no one tells you about when working in DC. The networking here is unreal. Where else can you hit up a neighborhood barbecue and casually meet people from the World Bank, State Department, National Geographic, and some hot new tech startup, all while waiting in line for a burger? Happens all the time here. Now, this networking thing creates this crazy career mobility. I've seen people hop from government gigs to private sector jobs to running nonprofits, all without having to pack up and move. The cross-pollination between different worlds creates this wild career paths that you just couldn't get anywhere else. Just to put it in perspective, the same project management job that pays you $92,000 in DC may only get you $66,000 in Atlanta or $85,000 in Chicago. That salary bump exists across pretty much every professional. These salaries sound pretty sweet, I know, but here's the catch. Let's talk about what it actually costs to live here. And spoiler alert, those weather patterns I'll tell you about later actually end up impacting your budget in ways you wouldn't expect. Alright, let's talk about real estate. Look at that work. Back in 2009, row homes were going for around $425,000 during the housing crisis. Now, those same homes are worth over $650,000. And fully renovated ones can hit $950,000. That's a big jump in just 15 years. And let me tell you, this crazy growth is happening all over the city. As of February 2025, the median home sales price in DC is $634,000, which is a 9.1% jump just from last year. Homes are typically selling within about 79 days and getting an average of 3 offers. So it's competitive, but not like those horror stories you hear about people camping outside open houses or anything. The range within this market is mind-blowing. And at the top end, properties in Georgetown, Colorado, where Obama lives, and Mass Ave Heights can easily hit $5 million. Mega luxury homes, we're talking $25 million territory. Meanwhile, there are still more doable options in neighborhoods like Brooklyn, Brightwood, and parts of the Northeast, where you can find condos in the $300,000 to $400,000 range if you're willing to compromise on space or updates. This neighborhood diversity directly connects to the education options we'll discuss soon, because where you can afford to live often determines where schools your kids can attend. But do you want to know something crazy? What $600,000 buys you versus what other city tells you everything. In DC, that gets you maybe a 2-bedroom condo in a decent neighborhood, or possibly a small row house that needs work in an up-and-coming area. That same $600,000 in Philly, a spacious 4-bedroom home with a yard. In Phoenix, you're living in luxury, my friend, with pools, gated communities, the works. And here's a little neighborhood secret that could save you hundreds of thousands. Check out the eastern side of Capitol Hill. And while the western parts near the actual Capitol building are insanely expensive, if you go just a mile or 2 east, you get the same historic charm and walkability for way less money. This pattern pops up in other transitional zones across the city too. Now the appreciation stories are all over the place depending on where you bought. Properties in Navy Yard have seen strong appreciation, but typical increases are closer to the citywide averages of around 56% for row houses over the last decade, not quite the 200 to 300% range. Meanwhile, the already established fancy neighborhoods like Cleveland Park have seen more modest growth in the 40 to 60% range. Still good, but not the same crazy returns. But housing is just the beginning. Let's break down what it really costs to live here day to day. Before we keep going, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe. I post new videos every week with real estate insights to help you make your way through DC market. Whether you're buying, selling, or just trying to figure out if the city's right for you. I've been doing this for a long time, and my goal is to make sure you feel confident every step of the way. Now, I know that some people from other states are always shocked when I show them my grocery receipts. Always the same reaction. You paid how much for that? A standard shopping trip that might cost $150 in Cincinnati easily hits $200 here in DC. And don't even get me started on the restaurant tabs. These prices are directly tied to that job market that we talked about. Higher salaries across the city, means businesses can charge more for everything. Overall, DC's cost of living sits about 42% higher than the national average, and that's not a small difference. Breaking it down, groceries run about 6% more. Feels higher though, honestly. Utilities are about 2% higher, and healthcare costs beat the national average by 17%. Ouch!
For example, restaurant prices show that cost gap super clearly. A casual dinner for two with maybe an appetizer and a couple drinks typically runs $80 to $100 in DC. That same meal in most mid-sized American cities would be more like $50 to $70. And if you're just hitting up the fancier spots, just bring that credit card with the highest limit. Want to know one area where DC is surprisingly affordable? Cultural stuff. Thanks to all the free Smithsonian museums, Kennedy Center's Millennium Stage free performances, and tons of public events, you can actually enjoy world-class cultural experiences without spending a dime. This definitely helps balance out some of the other crazy costs. And wait until we get to the community section. I'll show you how these cultural perks connect to that amazing urban nature balance that makes DC truly special. Now, for a typical professional making $85,000, here's how the monthly budget typically breaks down. $2,000, $200 for rent. That's one bedroom in a neighborhood where you won't get your packages stolen. $650 for food, and that's cooking at home most nights. $200 for utilities, $150 for transportation, $250 for healthcare premiums, and about $1,000 for everything else, including having any kind of social life and hopefully saving something. After taxes, this leaves around $2,000 a month. No wonder so many professionals here are still living with roommates in their 30s. But beyond all these costs, there's something else that catches most newcomers off guard: our weather. Let me tell you, when I moved to DC, I thought DC would be warm year-round. I was wrong in the best possible way. Washington has 4 real seasons, and each one has its own personality. Spring is different here. Those famous cherry blossoms transform the tidal basin into this pink wonderland, usually peaking around late March or early April. But it's not just the tourist spots. Regular neighborhood streets explode with dogwoods, magnolias, and redbuds. Some of my favorite walks are just random routes through the residential areas where the trees are going crazy. Summer though, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Summer is brutal. Temperatures typically bounce between 75 to 95 degrees, and occasionally it will push past 100 degrees during the worst heat waves. But it's not just the heat, it's the humidity that absolutely wrecks you. That famous swamp effect is no joke from June through August. After about 15 years, I finally developed some coping strategies. Do everything important before 10 a.m. Worship your air conditioner and figure out which public pools are least crowded on weekends. Now, fall is the reward for surviving summer. Rock Creek Park turns into this insane canvas of reds, oranges, and yellows. The Potomac River trails, chef's kiss for autumn views. This season usually stretches from late September through November, hitting that perfect temperature sweet spot for outdoor dining, hiking, and just wandering around different neighborhoods without sweating through your clothes. And these outdoor spaces are a crucial part of the lifestyle balance I'll show you in a bit. One of the reasons certain personality types thrive here while others struggle. Now, winter. It's milder here than when I grew up with it, but it can still surprise you. And while nowhere near as harsh as northern states, DC occasionally gets these beautiful snowfalls that transform the monuments and all those historic row houses into something from a Christmas card. We average about 14 inches of snow a year, though it's all over the place. Some winters barely see any, while others bury us. Want to know the funniest thing about DC winters that nobody talks about? The complete meltdown that happens with even a tiny bit of snow. I found it hilarious how 3 inches of snow can shut down schools, close government offices, and clear out grocery store shelves like the apocalypse is coming. The city has gotten better at dealing with snow over the years, but the collective panic attacks still happens every time the forecast shows any white stuff. But each season brings its own special DC activities. Spring has all these neighborhood festivals and outdoor markets popping up. Summer brings outdoor movies, jazz in the garden, and waterfront stuff. Fall is perfect for harvest celebrations and hitting trails before they get too cold. Winter transforms the city with holiday markets, ice skating at the National Gallery, and finding your favorite neighborhood pub to hide in when it's freezing outside. All right, let's shift gears to something else that really matters, especially if you've got kids: schools. Education is a big piece of the puzzle when you're thinking about where to live. So there's a reason why families make such dramatic decisions about where to live in the DC area. I've literally seen hundreds of friends pay thousands more for homes just to be in certain school zones. It's wild. And this is directly tied to those housing prices I mentioned earlier. Sometimes a single street can be the difference between educational goal and educational challenges. Now, the college scene is one of Washington's biggest strengths. Georgetown University ranks as the #1 school in the DC area, go Hoyas, with killer programs in international affairs, business, and law. George Washington University has these crazy good connections to government institutions. They're literally blocks from the White House. American University specializes in public service and policy stuff. And Howard University, one of the country's most distinguished historically Black universities, keeps churning out leaders in pretty much every field you can think of. And don't forget the University of DC. But K through 12, that's where things get complicated. When I moved here, DC public schools had a pretty rough reputation. Like, people would literally move to the suburbs the minute they had kids. Today, there's been some serious improvement, though challenges definitely remain. Schools like School Without Walls, Banneker, and Wilson High School proved that you can get excellent public education within the district, but quality varies dramatically depending on where you live and what school you get into. The charter school scene has completely transformed options for DC families. About 45% of public school students now attend charter schools, which is huge. These schools offer all kinds of specialized approaches: language immersion programs where kids become fluent in Mandarin or Spanish, arts integration schools, science and technology focuses. Schools like Washington Latin, Basis DC, and Yu Ying show how innovative these places can be. The lottery system to get in, though, absolute stress fest for parents. For families seeking private education, DC has some seriously prestigious options, but prepare for your bank account to take a beating. Schools like Sidwell Friends, where presidents' kids have gone, the National Cathedral School, St. Albans, and Georgetown Day School provide amazing education. The catch? Annual tuition between $45,000 to $60,000. That's college level money for kindergarten. These costs directly impact the family demographic profiles in different neighborhoods, which connects to that fascinating community variation I'll show you in a minute. There's this weird connection between schools and local businesses that nobody talks about. In neighborhoods with highly rated schools, you'll notice totally different business patterns. More family-friendly businesses, restaurants, tons of children's activities, and services absolutely catering to parents. These educational anchors basically shape the entire vibe of different areas within the city. Now, education options have this crazy impact on housing decisions and prices. Properties within boundaries for schools like Lafayette Elementary or Dill Middle School cost 15 to 25% more than nearly identical homes just outside these boundaries. This creates this complex math problem for families weighing housing costs against educational priorities. So the reality is, living in DC means figuring out the complicated educational puzzle that requires research, planning, and sometimes major financial sacrifices. Most families end up making some kind of compromise, trying to balance school quality against commute time, housing costs, and neighborhood amenities. But once you figure out where to live, you'll need to solve another puzzle: how to get around. DC has one of the country's better public transportation systems, yet we're among the 10 hardest commuter cities. Here's why. The average one-way commute in Washington is about 36 minutes for the metro area and just over 30 minutes for the city itself. That's way higher than the national average of 26 minutes. Why such a difference? It's because our metro area is super spread out. Tons of people live way out in Maryland and Virginia suburbs, but work in the district. The metro system is both DC's transportation blessing and curse. When it's working right, it's amazing. You can zip around the city and inner suburbs without dealing with traffic. But reliability issues, maintenance delays, service disruptions, those random moments when they're announced, "We're holding for train traffic ahead," and you're stuck in a tunnel for 20 minutes. It creates this love-hate relationship for pretty much everyone who lives here. The system has gotten better after all those rehabilitation projects over the last 5 years, but we've still got problems. Now, traffic congestion here is legendary. Major roads like I-395 and I-66 and the Beltway turn into parking lots during rush hour. The American Legion Bridge connecting Maryland and Virginia consistently ranks among the worst traffic choke points in the entire country. A 20-minute drive can easily become a 1-hour nightmare during peak times. This is why so many residents structure their entire lives around avoiding rush hour, and I'm one of them. The secret commuting hack most long-term residents use: flexible scheduling. By shifting your work hours either earlier or later by just 30 minutes, you can cut your commute time significantly. This explains why you'll see DC coffee shops packed with workers at 6:30 a.m. and local gyms absolutely slammed at 8 p.m. People will do anything to avoid those peak traffic hours. Remember those early cherry blossom visits I mentioned? Same principle. Get there at 7 a.m. before the tourist crowds and commuter chaos began. But for those living in central neighborhoods, DC's walkability is actually incredible. Areas like DuPont Circle, Columbia Heights, Capitol Hill, and downtown score in the 90s on the National Walkability Index. Most daily needs are within a 15-minute walk. The city's design, with its mix of residential and commercial in most neighborhoods, makes pedestrian life totally doable. And get this, biking infrastructure has gotten way better, with over 100 miles of bike lanes now crisscrossing the district. The Capital Bike Share program gives you easy access to bikes all over the city. And those protected bike lanes on major roads have made cycling so much safer. Still not perfect though. There are still gaps in the network, and drivers who act like bike lanes are optional parking spaces. Also, car-free living is absolutely possible in some neighborhoods. In places like Southwest Waterfront, 8th Street Corridor, and Petworth, you can totally manage without owning a car by mixing public transit, walking, biking, and using rideshare when you need to. Other parts of the upper northwest and far northeast, you're still gonna need a car to function normally. This car-free possibility directly connects to those cost of living savings I mentioned earlier. Ditching your car can save you around $6,000 a year. So the difference between rush hour and off-peak travel is mind-blowing. A weekend trip from downtown to Georgetown might take 15 minutes, while that exact same journey during Tuesday evening rush hour could easily take 45 minutes. And this time variably forces residents to develop these complicated mental maps of traffic patterns and secret routes. All my friends have their own back ways to get to places that they guard like state secrets. But beyond all these practical considerations, there's something special about DC that keeps people here despite the challenges. What most outsiders completely miss about DC is the vibrant life that exists beyond the political bubble. And trust me, this community aspect is what makes those housing costs we talked about earlier actually worth it for many people. Washington is made up of these distinct neighborhoods, each with its own personality and community vibe. Georgetown has that historic charm with cobblestone streets, those beautiful federal-era homes, and upscale shopping. Shaw pulses with the incredible energy through its innovative restaurants, music venues, and cultural spaces. Petworth has this awesome family-friendly atmosphere with community gardens, playgrounds, and people who've been there for generations. ADMO, Adams Morgan, keeps this international vibe alive through diverse dining options, independent businesses, and these amazing multicultural festivals. And these different neighborhood personalities directly connect to those housing choices I talked about. Your values determine where you'll feel most at home. Now, the balance between urban amenities and accessible nature is what really sets DC apart from other major cities. Within a 15-minute drive from downtown, you can be hiking trails in Rock Creek Park, kayaking on the Potomac River, or cycling along miles of dedicated paths. This proximity to nature creates this perfect balance to urban living that helps keep you sane during stressful times. Remember, those transportation options we just discussed, they make accessing this nature-urban mix so much easier than in most other cities. Plus, cultural richness goes way beyond those free museums everyone knows about. Neighborhood art centers, underground music venues, community theaters, and cultural institutes create this diverse landscape you can access throughout the city. Places like Bloom Bars in Columbia Heights, Rhizome in Tacoma, and Sitar Arts Center in Adams Morgan provides creative programming that tourists never even hear about. And community events really stitch together neighborhood identities all year long. First Friday art walks happen in multiple districts showcasing local creators. Farmers markets operate in nearly every neighborhood, becoming these weekly social hubs as much as places to shop. Neighborhood traditions like the Palisades 4th of July Parade, 8th Street Festival, and Adams Morgan Day strengthen community bonds across generations. These events create the sense of belonging that makes high housing costs worth it for so many residents. Now, the community tradition that made my Boston friends totally jealous, Porch Fest. This neighborhood-based music festival transforms private porches into public performances spaces for one magical weekend each year. Families stroll from house to house, enjoying everything from jazz groups to indie rock bands performing on their neighbors' front steps. It's this grassroots celebration that shows how DC residents create authentic community beyond all the official stuff. And unlike those $150 concerts downtown, this amazing experience is completely free. But what really makes DC special is how effortlessly it mixes culture and nature. One minute, you're at the Kennedy Center. The next, you're hiking along the Potomac. A fancy dinner could be followed by a quiet walk through the National Arboretum. It's this blend that helps justify the high cost of living. And then there are the local events that really show the city's heart. Think Bluegrass on Kingman Island, open house weekends at embassies, and neighborhood art walks. They're unique, often free, and create a real sense of community and discovery. But after covering all these aspects, let's talk about who DC is perfect for, and more importantly, who should probably look elsewhere. Who DC is perfect for, all right? So after 21 years, I've noticed certain people absolutely thrive here, while others struggle regardless of their income or circumstances. DC isn't for everyone, but for the right people, it's the perfect fit. If you love policy, history, or international culture, this city delivers. From attending congressional hearings to discovering Civil War landmarks or connecting with people from all over the world, DC offers daily opportunities to learn, grow, and connect. It's stimulating, fast-paced, and full of career momentum, especially for those who thrive on networking and jumping between sectors. Active folks enjoy the trails, courts, and river walks right in the city. And for the curious, there's always something new to explore. From global perspectives to local events you won't find in any guidebook. But it's not without trade-offs. The cost of living is steep, summers are brutally humid, and the ambition-driven culture can wear you out if you're not into that kind of hustle. This isn't a place for cheap housing or a slow, laid-back lifestyle. In the end, those who love living here tend to share one thing: curiosity. It keeps the challenges in perspective and turns everyday moments into something worth noticing. Now, for those seeking different priorities like maximum living space, minimal commuting, or simplified lifestyle, other regions might provide better matches. The Washington experience demands certain compromises that some find unacceptable regardless of the benefits. But for the right person, it's absolutely worth it. So here's the thing, from witnessing the city's population surge past 700,000 to experience the evolution of once overlooked neighborhoods, these 21 years have shown me that DC offers a unique quality of life that balances cosmopolitan amenities with accessible nature, cultural richness with community warmth. And honestly, that balance has kept me here despite some of the challenges I've shared with you today. So, do you think DC is the right fit for you? Whether you've made up your mind or you're still figuring things out, I'm here to help. Whether you're buying your first home or upgrading to your next one, I've helped hundreds make their way through the DC market, and I'd love to help you too. Just reach out at ryan@coalitionpg.com or check out the full details in the description below. And if you're curious about where people are moving to next, don't miss my next video, the 3 most underrated cities in Metro Washington, DC. You'll discover some incredible spots that might surprise you. and you'll get why so many people are choosing to move to these suburbs. See you there.